This is Bix Weir with roadtoroota.com. This presentation is called Stephen Mnuchin, hashtag not my Treasury Secretary by Bix Weir. I am using that phrase that the liberal left love to use, pound not my president with Trump. I'm agreeing with them that this guy, Steve Mnuchin, is a bad guy and the wrong guy in the wrong place at the wrong time. We are up to our ears in computer market manipulation in every market, and it is headed right out of the head of the US Treasury, as well as the Federal Reserve, but the US Treasury gets most of the call on this, and this is exactly why he was put in as head of the Treasury, and I am going to give you a little presentation on just how bad this guy is. Let's just start with his dad, Robert Mnuchin. He was the Skull and Bone Society member, the Yale class of 1955. All of those out there know what the Skull and Bone Society is. It's actually where the beginnings of the CIA came from. Very dark cult-ish society, secret society at Yale, and it's been going on for many years. But yeah, he was a member of that. And then, of course, after Skull and Bones, he went right to Goldman Sachs. And this is Mnuchin's dad. His dad was at Goldman Sachs for 35 years. Not only was he at Goldman Sachs, he was on the management committee, which is a very important position at Goldman Sachs. You decide who gets hired, who does not, all the big issues. And let's talk about Robert Mnuchin's other son, Alan, the older brother of Stephen Mnuchin. Once again, we have Goldman Sachs. He was at Goldman Sachs from 1984 to 1996, and then took all his brilliance over to Bear Stearns. We all know what happened to Bear Stearns. And then from there, he went right to Lehman Brothers. Don't follow this guy's career path, whatever you do. Then he went to AMG Partners hedge fund, where he is now. Expect that hedge fund to blow up in the very near future. All right, let's talk about Steve Mnuchin's accomplishments. Yes, once again, he was a Skull and Bones guy. Yale class of 1985. They actually found some documentation on his involvement in Skull and Bones at Yale. And then he went right to Goldman Sachs, where he spent time, cutting his teeth in the business world, 1985 to 2002. And then he started SFM Capital Management with none other than George Soros. Yes, the same George Soros who's trying to destroy America right now, funding every liberal program to overthrow Trump. And then he went to create Dune Capital Management and stuff it full of offshore entities the way criminals do. The congressional approval of Mnuchin was hysterical. And here's a great give and take between him and one of the senators on the panel.
Congratulations on your nomination. I had a different line of questioning, but I have to be honest with you, the information that came to us this morning makes me concerned. You've addressed some of it, but not all of it. On December 19th of last year, you signed a notarized affidavit on your questionnaire to the Finance Committee, certifying that it was true, accurate, and complete. Question 11 of this questionnaire asks nominees to, quote, list all positions held as an officer, director, trustee, partner, proprietor, agent, representative, consultant of any corporation, company, firm, partnership, other business enterprise, or educational or other institution. That seems to be pretty pervasive. So it's almost like an open book test. And yet, you did not answer in that questionnaire listing your position as director of a Cayman Islands corporation, as manager, chairman, and director of 8 additional shell corporations and holding companies, and nearly $100 million in real estate. And that questionnaire was corrected only after the committee staff, having done their due diligence, brought the missing information to your attention. Now, after that, you admitted to being the director of the offshore entity Dune Capital International Limited, a Cayman Island corporation. You admitted to moving your hedge fund, Dune Capital Partners, LLC, offshore to Anguilla in 2005, even though all the business was conducted in New York City. So I have a ton of other questions on policy, but first and foremost is truth and veracity. What Americans need in their Treasury Secretary, to know if they're going to be asked to do difficult things or challenging things, that they understand that there's a system. In essence, isn't it true that what you did here is take these companies, put them offshore, so you could help your clients who you were making money from avoid U.S. taxation?
No, that's not true at all.
Then why would you?
That's not true, Senator.
You just described that the purposes of creating these offshore entities were to help pensions and other entities, and the only reason to go offshore, as Senator Grassley said when he was I think the chairman of the committee, is the difference between investing in the United States or the Cayman Islands is the possibility of avoiding U.S. taxes. Your clients, you've made it very clear that you paid your taxes. Okay, I'll accept your word on that. But the people who, or the entities that you were helping and that you were making money from, you were helping them avoid U.S. taxes. Otherwise, they could have invested here.
Senator, let me first answer the first part of your question, which I will tell you, and I've said this before and I will repeat it again. I assure you that these forms are very complicated. I don't have the form in front of me, but I believed it said, to the best of my knowledge, this is true. And when I certified those forms, I thought it was correct. Perhaps it was a mistake in giving the committee information early, and I should have waited until I had finished the 278 and the ethics office. It was not just a function of your office. We were in the process of correcting things.
But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand the word list all positions. All positions.
Senator, in all due respect, I had a lot of complicated entities. You're referring to I didn't list the director. I listed the entity. So the fact that I didn't list I was a director was not intended to hide anything. And as I've mentioned, in regards to my $100 million of real estate, my lawyer, who's quite sophisticated in this stuff and actually has done this for many, many nominees before, believed that we filled out the form correctly, and that
let's get to the heart of my question. The heart of my question is, didn't you create these offshore entities that most Americans can create or take advantage of in order to help your clients who you were making money from avoid U.S. taxes?
No, not necessarily, okay? So first of all, I want to say it's important that the committee and the American public understand,
what were you doing it for then?
That this was done so that different entities could invest. So sometimes it had nothing to do with taxes. It had to do with what they could invest in and they couldn't invest in. And as I've said to you, if you want to put me on for the entire hedge fund and pension fund, we should have an IRS session to go through these issues, and I'd be more than happy to work with you and your offices to go through. These are very complicated issues.
Well, I appreciate that, but let me make the complication simple. One does not go and create offshore entities at the end of the day other than to avoid in some form or fashion the tax laws of the United States. That's pretty simple. And so that may be even legal, in which case we should definitely close it. But you have to question whether or not that is the essence of what we want as leadership. And so I'd like to hear you be more determinative of saying, yes, we're going to close all of those down if I can convince the President-elect to do so in Congress, because what you did may have been legal, but it certainly was to help people and entities avoid U.S. taxes.
Well, first of all, I'm absolutely committed to work with you and your office, as I've said, on tax simplification and to cut down and make sure that we don't let anybody avoid taxes. In certain cases, this is not a function of avoiding taxes. It was to create eligible investments for certain nonprofits. But I agree with you completely. I'm on board with what you said. I'd be happy to work with your office to simplify the tax code.
Whose investments were ultimately eligible, therefore, to avoid some taxes.
Again, it may have been an eligibility issue and not a tax issue, but I agree with you that this does not make sense, and I will work with you in your office. I've committed to do that, to make sure that why people need to move entities from Anguilla to everywhere else. And again, we're not creating jobs there. This is just where these entities are housed. I agree with you. And, it will create a lot less work for the tax accountants and the lawyers and make the American public more money and move our IRS resources otherwise. So I agree with you completely, Senator. Thank you.
Your time is up, Senator.
Wow. What a squirrely, weaselly lizard up there. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Anyway, that's our Treasury Secretary, the guy in charge of the monetary system for the United States people. Okay, any more accomplishments from Steve Mnuchin? Of course, he started One West Bank to steal, basically, subprime assets. Criminal bank. One of the worst foreclosure type entities known in modern history. Completely fraudulent, used illegal tactics all the time. There was a protest in front of his house in LA back when the subprime bubble was bursting, and he was like knee deep in it and out for the money, basically. Out for the money. You signed on the dotted line. Of course, they did everything illegal to forge contracts and, robo-signing. He was knee deep in the robo-signing controversy. But what do? He's our guy. Now, what's worse than all those accomplishments? Let's go through his Goldman Sachs career from 1985 to 2002. First of all, in November of 94 to December of 98, he headed the Mortgage Securities Department. Basically, he was in charge of creating mortgage-backed securities, different tranches of slicing and dicing, and how to put together fraudulent things to sell to stupid investors. That was his job at Goldman Sachs. If you saw The Big Short, that was Steve Mnuchin's the guy doing that behind the scenes back then. And then from December 98 to November 99, he oversaw that department, was in charge of U.S. government securities, money markets, and commodities at the fixed income, currency, and commodity division. Of course, he had to be in charge of commodities. What else would he do if he's head of the U.S. Treasury? And then from December 99 to February 1st, he was a member of the executive committee, taking his father's spot possibly, and co-head of the Technology Operating Committee. So here we got the crossover out of commodities into technology, into computer rigging at Goldman Sachs. That's where you got to put the spotlight. Technology, huh? What does this little dweeb have to do with technology? February 2001 to December 2001, Executive Vice President, Co-Chief Information Officer. He's so good at this technology rigging, we're going to put him in charge of that department. And from December 2001 to 2002, he makes Executive Vice President, member of the Management Committee, his father's spot, and he is head of the Chief Information Officer for Goldman Sachs. He is head of all the computer market rigging, all the high-frequency trading that Goldman Sachs does. That was his job at Goldman Sachs. Steve Mnuchin was the head of Goldman Sachs's computer market rigging division. There you have it. So yeah, hash sign not my Treasury Secretary is a good fitting hash sign for this guy. This is Bix Weir, roadtoruta.com. Sign up for free emails and you get a free book, Silver, Gold, Bitcoin, and God. And we'll keep fighting these guys, and one day they're going to go down. So hang in there.